Hi, I'm Mike Ryan. In previous videos, we visited many of the famous turquoise mines of America. And in this video, I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at turquoise mining. How is this stone that we love so much, how is it actually extracted from the ground? And when we're talking about turquoise mining, there are two basic ways to do it. You can tunnel, which is basically identify where on the mountain slope you think there might be some turquoise, and then have a horizontal called an adit into the mountain slope. Or you can remove the mountain itself to expose the turquoise in what is called open pit mining. Now, during the area we cover in part 1 of Turquoise in America, 1890 to 1910, the period of the Great American Turquoise Rush, there was only tunnel mining. And tunnel mining would continue through World War II. And we'll see why a little bit later in the video. But when you're tunneling, there are a few considerations you have to keep in mind. Number one, as you tunnel into that mine, you want to make sure the mountain doesn't fall down on you. So you have to have supports in that tunnel. Number two, as you're going in and you're removing this material, you got to get it out. So you'll put rails behind you, you'll have carts, you can take your muck or your overburden out. And that's why on the outside slope they'll dump that, and you'll often see what are called tailings that are fanning out from the area of that tunnel. You need to breathe, so you got to have air, and the deeper you get into that mountain, the more you have to be aware that you might have to tunnel up, get some air holes in there. And also you have to see, so you're going to have some sort of illumination. You're not putting in electric lights or anything, at least not at this level of mining. So they would have headlamps of some sort. So we see in this first photo, we see the famous Azure turquoise mine, which was part of the Azure Mining Company outside of Silver City. And that turquoise would eventually become known as Tyrone. And this photo is from the 1890s, and we see a good example of the rail system and how they would dig into the hill there of the mine. Our next photo is from Cerrillos, and this is from about 1930s, 35 or so. And this is Herculano Montoya, most probably. And it's probably a staged photo because there really wasn't much turquoise mining being done there at the Muniz claim, which was also known as the Tiffany. But we see an example of some tunnels. Next we see the King Manassas turquoise mine outside of Manassas, Colorado. And in this first photo, we see a long view of the extensive amount of the open pit that was done in the 70s by Bill King, but we also see what was left of the old tunnels. And the next photo shows that even more, as you can see the extensive tunneling that was done primarily by Bill's father, Pete. And at one point they had discovered what they called the Great Room, where they found a big turquoise pocket, and they basically expanded the tunnel out into more of a room-size area. The next photo shows one of those tunnels. We see one of the tunnels that they would have, and then also an ore cart that they would use to remove overburden and to the waste material from the tunnel, and then also the turquoise itself, as they would take that out. Interesting little niche here in this photo that shows where they would store their headlamps. Also, when you're digging in hard rock, you're going to need something to break that up, and so they would store their dynamite in these safe areas with the steel doors on them, and then keep their blasting caps separate from that. The open pit era really opened up, especially for the large copper mining companies in the 1950s, and this was due to the expansion in metallurgy following World War II, which allowed for the creation of these giant trucks that could carry massive amounts of overburden. They could literally remove a mountain. Prior to that, they'd identified where the high-grade ore was, and they would tunnel in directly to that. As the high-grade ore bodies played out, they knew there was lots of copper ore there, but it was of lower grade, and they really needed to do the open pit mining. So that started in the 1950s, and we see examples of the Arizona mines here from Sleeping Beauty, and we see also at the famous Bisbee Lavender Pit. And this is a really great photo because it shows the whole pit. It shows how you have to bench, how as you go deeper and deeper you have to move the sides of the walls further apart. It also shows outlined in red the turquoise zone, which was in a mineral area known as the Glance Conglomerate. This was a very soft material, really crumbly and really more like cemented little pebbles of rock. That's where the turquoise was found. You can see it only goes down about 100, 200 feet in a pit that extends almost 900 feet. Very, very deep there. That's an example of the open pit mining in the large mines. We also see an example of a gold mine, the Carlin Gold Mine in Eureka County. And this is really interesting for turquoise lovers because this was where the number 8 turquoise, which was found in the Blue Star claims, was found in this area and became part of this Carlin Gold Mine, this open pit mine. So maybe this photo we're looking at, we might be looking at the old number 8 claims. The Udgars sold that in 1964, and this photo is from 1970. So they were really going at it. The turquoise at number 8 was pretty much gone by the mid-70s, and we tell that story in Turquoise in America Part 2. When you're doing smaller scale turquoise mining and you're doing open pit, the two main tools you're going to use are an excavator, which is just a large claw to pull away the material from the face where the turquoise is located, and a bulldozer to move that material because you're going to have to clean it up somehow. You're going to have to sort it, and you're going to have to pick through it to pick out the turquoise from the overburden. We see an example here at the Cheyenne Turquoise Mine of an excavator, and we see how they're working with that, and then we see a good example of the old tailings that would fan out when they used to be doing the tunnel. So what they're doing here is basically tearing down the area around the old tunnels. The Blue Wind photo that we see next is really fascinating because this is a moment in time that is seldom captured, and Rex Edgar took these photos. He and his family, his dad Dick Edgar and his brother Joe, I think some of his other brothers, probably Rick was up there, they were mining at the Tungsten, I believe, and they went about a mile or so away to an area they'd heard about, and they made one pass, and there they got the bulldozer. We see the bulldozer, and we see the claw on the back. So Dick just lowered that ground, and it was a really sort of like a furrow in the ground there. And Rex said they were following behind, and they could see these nuggets popping up. And then when they collected those and took them into the shop and cut through and saw this beautiful web turquoise, it's quite a moment for a turquoise miner. We also see a photo of what happens when you just dig down, 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 and the slopes get steep. And we see a photo here of the Domelli turquoise mine, which is next to the Godber Burnham claims. And we see here where they have done no benching of any sort, and you can see the material sliding down the slope. You see that soft material sliding down. So that is a claim that is really going to require some extensive reclamation, some benching work, if there's going to be continued mining there. In contrast, we see finally at Lone Mountain, we see an example of some very fine benching work. Here we see Gary Godford, who is the mine manager there for the Smiths, who own the claim. And we see how over the years, what was a tunnel mine became an open pit mine in the 50s, but they just dug down, 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 and the slopes got so steep that now in order to continue mining, they've had to bench those back. We see a really good example of that benching being done here. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of turquoise mining.